You know, usually when you talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of, like, total precision.
Right, like it's engineering or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like you break your arm, the X-ray shows that, that jagged white line on the screen.
And the doctor just points at it and says, well, there it is. That's the problem.
Right. It's binary. It's comforting, honestly. Broken or not broken.
You can see it, you categorize it, and most importantly, you know exactly how to fix it.
But then you step into the world of, say, global economics or international law.
Oh, yeah.
Or even just domestic supply chains, right? And suddenly that X-ray machine is just, I mean, it's completely useless.
It really is. It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy water.
Exactly. Because cause and effect, they aren't perfectly linear anymore.
No, not at all. A decision gets made in some office in Washington, D.C., and suddenly it impacts a farmer in Sri Lanka.
Right.
And neither of them completely understands the exact mechanism of, how it happened. And that murkiness applies perfectly to the systems we're unpacking today.
It really does. So let's get into it, because today is Friday, 240-72026, and you are listening to another deep dive produced by the RTV Global Network.
That's right.
Our mission today is to take this overwhelming flood of information, and I mean, we have an incredibly dense stack of sources today, and extract the actual insights. I am host speaker.
And I am expert speaker.
And look, we aren't just going to read you the headlines today.
Definitely not.
We have breaking local and global news spanning international trade victories, geopolitical shifts, technological disruptions, domestic crime, and even major sports championships.
It's a massive stack.
It is. But our goal is to sift through that mountain of information, connect the dots, and extract the underlying why.
So that you, listening to this right now, can walk away not just informed, but deeply insightful about how these moving parts actually affect your world.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. We have to start with the concept of national value, right? Like how a country interacts with the globe. Right. And we have a major trade win to kick things off here. Sri Lanka has successfully negotiated its placement into the lower 10% tariff category under a new United States trade measure.
And I just have to say, this is a highly significant development, largely because of what the alternative was.
Right, it was looking pretty bad.
Very bad. The U.S. administration had announced a sweeping trade action. Specifically, this is a Section 301 action targeting imports linked to forced labor.
Wait, hold on. Break down Section 301 for me, because that sounds like, I don't know, bureaucratic jargon.
It does sound dry, yeah.
But it clearly has teeth if it's swinging tariff rates around like this.
Oh, it has massive teeth. So Section 301 of the U.S. Trade Act basically gives the United States government the authority to investigate and unilaterally respond to foreign trade practices that it considers unfair or discriminatory.
Okay.
In this specific case, the U.S. was applying it to global imports, where they suspected forced labor was involved anywhere in the supply chain.
Wow. Okay.
And when a country gets hit with a Section 301 tariff, it is not a gentle slap on the wrist. It's a punitive wall. It's designed to price those goods completely out of the American market.
And the sources say Sri Lanka was originally bracing for a proposed 44% tariff rate.
Yes, 44%.
Just think about that math for a second. If you're exporting $100 worth of goods, the U.S. government was essentially going to slap an extra $44 tax on it right at the border.
Which you just can't survive.
Exactly. Your buyers in the U.S. will just go to another country.
They absolutely will. A 44% tariff would decimate export volumes overnight. It would be a fatal blow to industries that are already operating on really tight margins.
But they managed to avoid it.
They did. Through coordinated national efforts and strong bilateral relations, Ambassador Mahinda Samarasinghe managed to confirm a massive drop. They negotiated it down to that lower 10% category.
Which is huge. It's like bracing for a 44% tax on your livelihood, and suddenly it's slashed to 10.
It's a diplomatic lifeline.
Right. But, what I really want to understand is the disconnect here between these high-level diplomatic victories and the actual dirt under the fingernails reality of farming.
Yeah, the ground reality.
Because while the diplomats are high-fiving over tariffs in Washington, the tea industry back home is flashing major warning signs.
Yeah, it really is. The export data reveals a pretty troubling reality. Tea export volumes in Sri Lanka actually fell in June for the second consecutive month.
Jeez.
And this just continues the industry's really weak first-half performance.
But the sources also specifically note that this volume drop happened despite stronger rupee earnings.
Yes.
So walk me through that. If the rupee is stronger, Shouldn't the industry be celebrating? Like, why does a stronger currency not magically fix the problem?
Well, this is a classic trap in economic reporting, right? People confuse currency valuation with physical output.
Okay.
Let's say you export tea. Because the Sri Lankan rupee is stronger against the dollar right now, when you convert your dollar earnings back into local currency, your financial ledger might look robust.
Right, the numbers look good on paper.
Exactly. Your earnings are holding up, but you are physically shipping fewer kilograms of tea.
Okay, I see. So you're making a decent return on the currency exchange, but you're actively losing actual market share.
Precisely. If your volume drops, it means fewer cups of Ceylon tea are being poured globally. Someone else, maybe Kenya or India is filling those cups.
Wow.
A strong rupee might mask the financial pain temporarily, but good diplomacy and favorable exchange rates can't magically fix the actual supply chain issues causing that drop in volume.
Right, the on-the-ground stuff.
Exactly. Things like fertilizer availability, weather conditions, labor shortages, those are the real bottlenecks.
Which perfectly explains the paradox happening with cinnamon right now. This part of the research genuinely blew my mind.
The cinnamon situation is fascinating.
It is. So Sri Lanka is targeting $300 million in cinnamon export earnings. And the farm gate prices for the absolute premium grade, which is called Alba grade cinnamon, have hit a record 7,500 rupees.
Now, Alba is the gold standard of cinnamon. It's the thinnest, most delicate peel of the inner bark.
I've seen pictures. It looks almost like tightly rolled parchment paper.
Exactly. And it contains the most refined flavor profile. But getting to that inner bark requires an immense amount of specialized human skill.
Right, and that is exactly where the machine is breaking down. The sources highlight that despite this record-high price of 7,500 rupees, the industry is facing incredibly stiff headwinds.
Yeah, the labor side is tough.
They have rising labor costs, a severe shortage of skilled cinnamon peelers, and the high cost of fertilizer and planting materials.
It's an economic bottleneck. You have aggressive global demand, you have buyers who are clearly willing to pay record prices for the Alba grade, but the physical reality of extracting it from the soil and processing it is capping the potential.
Because you can't just build a machine to do it.
No, you can't automate cinnamon keeling on that premium level. If you don't have the skilled human hands, the bark stays on the tree.
So you have a nation that is securing massive tariff cuts in Washington, but struggling to find enough skilled hands to peel bark in its own estates.
It's quite the contrast.
And amidst this incredibly complex reality, the government just unveiled a national export development plan. The target, $36 billion by 2030.
A $36 billion export target by 2030 is, frankly, staggeringly ambitious.
That is a huge number.
To hit that number, you can't just rely on incremental improvements in tea and cinnamon. You have to fundamentally transform and diversify the entire export basket.
Right.
You have to integrate into global tech supply chains, high-end manufacturing, and services.
But how do you project a $36 billion future when you are still relying on international emergency aid to fix the present?
That is the big question.
Because right next to this massive export plan, the sources note that the Asian Development Bank, the ADB, has just approved a $200 million emergency assistance package for Sri Lanka's post-cyclone Ditwa recovery.
It really paints a picture of a nation at a crucial, almost precarious pivot point.
Yeah.
That $200 million from the ADB is survival money. Cyclone Ditwa caused tangible destruction, infrastructure damage, agricultural loss. That money is needed just to patch the holes in the ship.
So it's like a business owner applying for government food stamps while simultaneously pitching investors on a billion-dollar IPO.
Yeah.
The duality is just jarring.
It is jarring, but it's the reality of a developing nation that is highly vulnerable to climate shocks. You have to rebuild the destroyed bridge today while planning the automated port of tomorrow.
Right.
And interestingly, how the world views the citizens of this nation is also shifting in the middle of all this. The Sri Lankan passport has just hit its highest ranking in a decade, climbing to 94th globally.
Best ranking since 2019.
Yeah.
Now look, 94th might not sound like the top of the podium, but climbing the index is a massive psychological and logistical boost, isn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely. A passport ranking isn't just a travel convenience. It is a direct reflection of a country's geopolitical standing, its economic stability, and honestly, how much trust other nations place in its citizens. When a passport climbs the ranks, it means border control agencies globally are looking at that nation and saying, we consider your citizens a lower risk for illegal immigration and a higher asset for tourism and business.
And I imagine if you were trying to hit a $36 billion export target, your business leaders need to be able to jump on a plane and negotiate deals without waiting 6 months for a visa approval.
Precisely. Mobility is the lubricant of international trade.
But that mobility, that trade, those cargo ships carrying the Alba cinnamon and the tea, they are all entirely dependent on the global energy market.
Completely dependent.
And right now, the ocean they're sailing on is becoming highly volatile. We really need to zoom out and look at the economic forces dictating these trade routes.
Yeah.
Because oil has just hit $100 a barrel for the first time since May.
And the mechanism driving that price spike is pure geopolitical friction. It isn't a lack of oil in the ground. It's the fear that the oil won't be able to safely move across the water.
Right.
The escalating conflict in the Middle East is the primary driver here.
Specifically, the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. For anyone who hasn't looked at a map recently, this is a narrow choke point between Yemen on the Arabian Peninsula and Djibouti in Eritrea in the Horn of Africa.
Right.
If you want to get through the Red Sea to the Suez Canal, you have to go through this strait. And Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis are claiming attacks on 2 Saudi oil tankers right in that flashpoint.
And when a tanker gets attacked, maritime insurance premiums skyrocket overnight.
Obviously.
Shipping companies start rerouting their vessels all the way around the continent of Africa, which adds weeks to the journey and burns massive amounts of extra fuel.
And someone has to pay for that.
Exactly. That friction is instantly priced into the global market, which is why oil surges to $100 a barrel.
And I really want to emphasize how this connects back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
When oil hits $100 a barrel in the Middle East, it trickles all the way down to your daily life.
Without a doubt.
It hits the shipping cost for the cinnamon we just talked about. It raises the price of the diesel for the trucks transporting the tea from the estates to the ports. It increases the cost of fertilizer. Your local inflation is directly tied to the safety of those tankers in the Red Sea.
Energy is the foundational cost of modern civilization. And the diplomatic chess game surrounding this energy security is operating at the highest possible stakes right now.
Yeah, it's tense.
At the exact same time the Houthis are claiming attacks on Saudi tankers, the United States has signed a landmark nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia.
A landmark nuclear deal. I mean, that is an incredible flex of diplomatic leverage.
It is. The U.S. is essentially providing advanced technological and geopolitical security to Saudi Arabia, ensuring that the Saudis remain a stable energy supplier aligned with American interests despite the chaos happening just to their south in Yemen.
And as if that wasn't complicated enough, Pakistan is entering the arena as a high-stakes mediator. The reports indicate Pakistan is seeking a $10 billion fund from the U.S. after they mediated talks with Iran.
Which is a perfect example of transactional diplomacy.
Right.
Pakistan shares a border with Iran. They have channels of communication that the West often lacks. By mediating talks, they provide a really valuable geopolitical service.
But they want to get paid for it.
Exactly. They are essentially handing the U.S. a bill for $10 billion for that service, recognizing that American leverage in the region requires regional partners.
So you have oil markets reacting to missiles, the U.S. leveraging nuclear deals, and Pakistan playing peacemaker for a $10 billion payout. It's just dizzying.
It is a lot to track.
And while all this is happening, the central banks, the people who actually control the flow of money are making moves that haven't been seen in decades. The Bank of Japan has raised its main interest rate to 1%.
Now, in many parts of the world, a 1% interest rate sounds like free money.
Right.
But in the context of Japan, this is an absolute earthquake. This is the highest Japanese interest rate since 1995.
1995.
Yes. For roughly 3 decades, Japan has been the land of zero or even negative interest rates. They experienced a massive asset bubble burst in the early 90s, and they have been fighting off deflation where money actually gains value and people stop spending for a generation. The last time rates were this high in Japan, the original Sony PlayStation was just hitting the market.
That is wild. But explain to me how a 1% rate in Tokyo affects the rest of the world. Like, why should someone in Colombo or New York care that Japan raised its rate by a fraction of a percent?
Because of a mechanism called the carry trade. For decades, global investors knew they could borrow Japanese yen for practically zero interest.
Okay.
So they would borrow billions of yen, convert it to U.S. dollars or emerging market currencies, and invest it in places where the interest rates were 4%, 5%, or higher. And they just pocketed the difference. It was a massive engine of global liquidity.
Oh, wow. So Japan was essentially acting as like a zero-interest ATM for global investors to fund projects all over the world.
Exactly. But when the Bank of Japan raises that rate to 1%, the math on the carry trade suddenly gets much tighter. The cost of servicing that borrowed yen goes up.
So what happens?
Investors start selling off their global assets to pay back their yen loans. The result? Trillions of dollars in liquidity can get sucked out of emerging markets and flow back to Tokyo.
So you have a scenario where energy costs are spiking because of the Middle East, and simultaneously global borrowing costs are going up because Japan closed the cheap money ATM.
Yes.
That is a recipe for immense economic pressure on developing nations trying to hit targets like a $36 billion export plan.
It creates an incredibly hostile financial environment, yes.
And this brings me to a part of the deep dive that feels, honestly, straight out of science fiction. But it's happening right now. We are navigating these massive, volatile, human-driven geopolitical crises, and at the same time, we are handing the reins of our financial systems over to artificial intelligence.
The integration of AI into finance is accelerating rapidly, and it's raising some serious alarms. The chief of CPA Australia, Professor Dale Pinto, has actually issued a stark warning about this.
What did he say?
He stated that there is an ethical reckoning coming for accountants and financial professionals who are navigating these automated systems.
An ethical reckoning. I mean, that is strong language for the accounting world.
It is, because he's highlighting a really critical vulnerability. As we push for a hyper-efficient digital automation, the temptation is to just blindly trust the algorithm.
Right, let the computer do it.
Exactly. But Professor Pinto emphasizes that human judgment and professional skepticism remain absolutely critical.
And we're seeing this digital push locally, too. The sources note that the SEC, the Colombo Stock Exchange, and CA Sri Lanka just signed a memorandum of understanding to advance XBRL-based digital reporting for listed companies. Now, what exactly is XBRL?
Right. So XBRL stands for Extensible Business Reporting Language. Rather than a company publishing, say, a static PDF of their financial report, XBRL tags every single number with a piece of code.
Oh, okay.
It turns a financial statement into a machine-readable database.
Okay, so if I'm an AI algorithm, I don't have to read the document. I can just instantly scrape the XBRL tags and build a financial model in milliseconds.
Exactly. It creates incredible efficiency and transparency. But, returning to Professor Pinto's warning, algorithms are fantastic at finding efficiencies in stable environments based on historical data. They are terrible at understanding unprecedented human chaos.
This is exactly what I was thinking. If XBRL is feeding data to an AI, and the AI is mapping out market positions, how does it factor in, like, a Houthi missile hitting an oil tanker?
Right.
Or Pakistan asking for $10 billion? Or the Bank of Japan ending a 30-year economic policy? If the variables driving the economy are fundamentally rooted in human fear and geopolitical ego, how can a math equation predict it?
It often can't. When the variables are unpredictable human conflicts, the algorithmic math just breaks down.
Yeah.
And if the accountants and financial managers have lost their professional skepticism, if they just point to the computer and say, well, the AI says we're fine, you invite catastrophic systemic risk. You need humans to contextualize the data.
So are we basically handing the calculator to a robot while the house is on fire?
That is the exact fear. We are rushing toward technological delegation in a world that is still defined by very analog human conflicts.
And speaking of those analog conflicts, the sources transition us from the theoretical risks of AI directly into the visceral reality of law, order, and domestic security.
It's a sharp pivot.
Because, while technology is advancing, I should note, the sources briefly mention Sri Lanka just successfully performed its first AI-enabled robotic surgery, which is a staggering medical renaissance.
It's truly incredible.
But the violence on the streets remains violently old school.
The contrast is sharp. On one hand, robotic arms are saving lives in operating theaters. On the other, we have a major diplomatic and criminal incident that unfolded right in the Colombo port city.
Let's unpack this because it's incredibly complex. The port city is this massive, modern, reclaimed land project designed to be a premier international business hub, right?
Yeah.
But the news breaking from there isn't about international finance. It's about a violent confrontation between two groups of Chinese nationals.
And this was not a minor dispute. The violence escalated into an alleged abduction.
Oh, jeez.
Tragically, the body of a Chinese national was later discovered in Ahilia Gota, which is significantly inland from Colombo.
They found the victim bound and deceased. The authorities moved quickly, though, and arrested two Chinese nationals at the Bandar Aniki International Airport, the BIA, as they were allegedly trying to flee the country over this gang clash killing.
The geopolitical ripple effects of this are immediate. The Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka has publicly weighed in, strongly urging local authorities to conduct a thorough investigation to establish the facts.
Right.
They made it very clear they are closely monitoring the case and prioritizing the safety of Chinese nationals in the country.
Now, as always, we are reporting these facts with absolute neutrality, just as the sources present them. But from a systemic perspective, you have to look at the pressure this puts on local jurisdiction. You have foreign nationals operating in a special economic zone built with heavy foreign investment, settling disputes with lethal gang violence, and a foreign embassy publicly demanding a thorough probe.
It tests the sovereignty and the capability of the local law enforcement and judicial apparatus on an international stage.
Yeah, it really does.
When foreign gang violence spills into a flagship economic zone like the port city, it forces the host nation to prove that its rule of law supersedes any foreign influence or internal expatriate conflicts.
But proving that rule of law is incredibly difficult when the domestic justice system is simultaneously managing an avalanche of local crises. I mean, just looking at the sheer volume of crime in our stack today is overwhelming. Let's start with the Colombo prison riots.
The autopsy reports from the tragedy at the Colombo prison were recently presented to the court, and the findings are grim.
Yeah, this was tough to read.
They revealed that 17 of the 28 deaths during the riots were caused by gunshot injuries.
17 people shot to death inside a state correctional facility. The mechanics of a prison riot are chaotic, sure, but a death toll like that from firearms raises profound questions about state use of force, facility management, and just baseline security of the penal system.
It indicates a complete breakdown of institutional control, and that lack of control isn't contained to the prisons.
Right.
On the streets, we have a report of a motorcycle gunman opening fire near the Kupiawada Cemetery in Damatagoda, injuring an individual before fleeing.
It's brazen daylight violence. But law enforcement isn't just dealing with street-level shootings. They are actively pursuing financial crime syndicates, too. Authorities recently moved to freeze 150 million rupees worth of assets linked to the organized crime figure known as Rathkama Vidura.
Freezing 150 million rupees is a strategic strike. When dealing with organized crime, arresting foot soldiers doesn't dismantle the network. You have to choke off the capital.
Take their money.
Exactly. Freezing assets of that magnitude disrupts their ability to pay bribes, procure weapons, and launder illicit funds.
And the long arm of the law isn't just grabbing notorious gang leaders. It's reaching into the political class, too. The son of former state minister Shantha Bandara was remanded over his alleged involvement in a massive 20 million rupee robbery case.
It highlights that the judicial dragnet is active across different social strata.
And here is a bizarre microcrime that proves local actions have global consequences. A Sri Lankan-run dealership was just convicted in New Zealand for odometer tampering.
Odometer tampering, literally rolling back the mileage on a used car to make it appear newer and sell for a higher price. What makes this notable is that it was New Zealand's first ever conviction for this specific type of fraud.
So you have a Sri Lankan business exporting a highly localized, deceptive practice all the way to New Zealand and ending up in the history books of their legal system.
It's wild.
It's a fascinating look at borderless crime. But when you aggregate all of this, the port city murders, the prison riots, the asset freezes, the political remand, it all funnels into one central bottleneck, the courts.
And that bottleneck is fundamentally paralyzed right now. Former President Ranil Wickremesinghe has proposed setting up a select committee to find ways and means to resolve the pending court cases in the country. The number of pending cases currently stands at 1.1 million.
I really need you to pause and visualize that number. 1.1 million pending court cases.
This is a staggering thing.
I did the math before we recorded. If you had a magical judge who could hear and clear one case every single hour, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no sleep, no weekends, and no holidays, it would take over 125 years to clear a backlog of 1.1 million cases.
Your math perfectly illustrates the crisis. A system with 1.1 million pending cases isn't just slow, it is structurally failing.
Yeah.
When a property dispute, a labor violation, or a criminal trial takes a decade to resolve, the justice system itself becomes an instrument of punishment. It stifles economic growth because businesses can't resolve contract disputes.
So the idea of forming a select committee to look into it, I mean, can a committee really fix a backlog that massive? Or is it just applying a bureaucratic Band-Aid to an engine that is completely seized up?
Well, a select committee can identify the legislative bottlenecks. Perhaps digitizing records, changing procedural laws, or increasing the number of active judges. But resolving 1.1 million cases requires a generational overhaul of legal infrastructure, not just a committee report.
And this massive backlog serves as the backdrop for intense political and legal maneuvering happening at the very top of the system. For instance, Namal Rajapaksa recently appeared before the Court of Appeal.
Right.
He was acting in his capacity as an attorney at law, representing former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa regarding a petition to prevent his arrest over the Easter attacks investigations.
It is a high-stakes legal maneuver. You have a former president utilizing legal mechanisms to preemptively secure his freedom amidst ongoing investigations into one of the darkest days in the nation's recent history.
And over in Parliament, the temperature is just as high. They are scheduled to debate a no-confidence motion against the Minister of Justice and National Integration.
A no-confidence motion against the justice minister, while the justice system itself has 1.1 million backlogged cases, is deeply symbolic of the political friction.
Furthermore, opposition party leaders are currently holding special discussions to contest a government proposal regarding the Supreme Court. The government is proposing to extend the retirement age of Supreme Court and Court of Appeal judges, and the opposition is fiercely fighting it.
The debate over judicial retirement ages is never just about age. It is about the composition and ideological balance of the courts.
Right.
Extending the tenure of sitting judges prevents new appointments, which the opposition often views as a tactic by the current administration to maintain a favorable judicial environment.
Again, keeping our absolute neutrality, we aren't judging the merits of the extension or the opposition to it. We are simply pointing out that the judicial system, from the 1.1 million citizen cases at the bottom to the constitutional debates at the top, is the primary battlefield for domestic power right now.
It absolutely is. But while the elite debate the Constitution, the state machinery still has to manage the basic economic reality of the population, and we did see some tangible movement there.
Right, with the food prices.
Yes. Lanka Sathosa, the state-owned retail network, announced a reduction in the prices of 11 essential food items.
Which, if you're struggling with the inflation caused by those Red Sea oil prices we talked about earlier, is an immediate tangible relief. Dropping the price of essentials at Sathosa is one of the most direct ways the state can ease the burden on lower-income households.
But state efficiency is a double-edged sword. While Sathosa is dropping prices, the Labor Department announced a complete suspension of public services related to the Employees Provident Fund, the EPF database, for 2 days, July 30 and 31.
For those who might not know, the EPF is the massive Social Security and pension scheme for the private sector in Sri Lanka. It holds the retirement savings of millions of workers.
A huge system.
If you need to access your funds, check your balance, or process a claim, and the system goes down for 48 hours, you hit a concrete bureaucratic wall.
It highlights the friction of public administration, and the demand for accountability within that administration is growing. The Committee on Public Enterprises, commonly known as COPE, has recently referred 23 cases involving 8 different state institutions to the Bribery Commission, or CIA-BOBI, for investigation.
Now, COPE is essentially the parliamentary watchdog that monitors the financial performance of state corporations, right?
Yes, exactly.
For them to bundle up 23 separate cases across 8 institutions and hand them over to CIA-BOBI, the commission, to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, that implies a significant systemic sweep of potential financial malfeasance.
It is a strong signal that parliamentary oversight is attempting to initiate criminal consequences for administrative corruption.
And wrapping up this dense political web, we see the domestic seamlessly merging back into the international. Sri Lanka's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Vijitha Herath, recently held a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Manila.
It perfectly closes the loop on our earlier discussion. You have the foreign minister meeting the U.S. Secretary of State, undoubtedly discussing those Section 301 tariffs, regional security, and economic partnerships.
It's all tied together.
The domestic struggles, whether it's funding the EPF or clearing court backlogs, are entirely dependent on the success of these foreign policy engagements.
It is all interconnected. But we need to shift our focus now. From the harsh realities of the courts, the crime, and the high-stakes politics, we have to look at the foundational layers of society, the environment the next generation will inherit, and the education system preparing them for it.
Right.
Because the news here is just as volatile as the political landscape.
Let's begin with the physical environment, because we are seeing severe ecological damage from both natural and human causes. A massive wildfire has torn through the Bomberu Ela Forest Reserve, destroying over 20 acres of protected land.
20 acres of forest wiped out. The ecological recovery for an area that size will take decades.
Yeah.
And while that fire might be attributed to dry conditions, we also have reports of active, malicious human destruction.
Yes.
Racketeers have been caught vandalizing a forest reserve in Metawachia.
This is the tragic fragility of environmental protection. You can have laws on the books, but if racketeers, illegal loggers, or land encroachers can simply walk into a reserve and vandalize it for profit, the enforcement mechanism is failing.
And hovering over all this localized destruction is a massive systemic climate threat, El Nino. The authorities are currently taking preemptive steps to ensure food security because El Nino is expected to trigger unpredictable rainfall patterns later this year.
El Nino is a warming of ocean surface temperatures in the Pacific that fundamentally disrupts global weather. For Sri Lanka, it typically means severe shifts in the monsoon cycles, either prolonged droughts or devastating concentrated floods.
And this ties perfectly back to our very first segment. You cannot build a $36 billion agricultural and manufacturing export economy if El Nino droughts destroy the tea and cinnamon crop yields.
Exactly.
Or if unpredictable rainfall washes away the planting seasons. Environmental security is the absolute prerequisite for economic security.
But to inject a moment of levity into the environmental news, the authorities are also trying to foster a positive connection with wildlife. The Pinnawala Zoo has issued an open invitation to the public to help name 3 newly born fishing cat cubs.
It's a brilliant bit of community engagement. If you've ever wanted to name a wild, aquatic adapted feline, now is your chance. It builds public investment in conservation.
It's a nice story.
It is. But as we pivot from wildlife to the social fabric and the youth, the news takes a deeply sobering turn. We have a tragic incident from Trincomalee where 5 young students were hospitalized after eating toxic castor seeds.
This is a highly concerning public health incident. The castor bean plant is quite common, but its seeds contain ricin, which is one of the most potent natural toxins on Earth.
And to an untrained eye or a curious child, a castor seed looks incredibly innocuous. It looks like a beautifully modeled, interesting little bean.
It really does.
But the mechanism of ricin is terrifying. It literally gets inside human cells and prevents them from synthesizing proteins, causing systemic cellular death. 5 kids ended up in the hospital just from interacting with the local flora.
What this incident really highlights is a profound loss of generational wisdom.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Decades ago, children growing up surrounded by this flora would have been explicitly taught by their parents and grandparents exactly which plants were safe, which were medicinal, and which were deadly.
But as society urbanizes, that basic, vital botanical awareness just evaporates. It sets up this wild, almost dystopian analogy for me. Earlier, we talked about the port city.
Right.
The Ministry of Defense just reviewed proposals to build a helipad in the port city to boost domestic aviation and cater to high net worth individuals.
Yes, infrastructure for the ultra-wealthy.
Exactly. So we are building helipads for billionaires on artificial land, but we have children ending up in emergency rooms because they ate toxic seeds they found outside simply because they didn't know what they were. Are we accelerating so fast into this high-tech future that we are forgetting to secure the basic grounded reality of the present?
It is the defining tension of rapid development. A society can leapfrog into the future with AI surgeries and luxury helipads, but if the foundational elements, basic safety, traditional knowledge, child welfare are left behind, the progress is hollow.
And speaking of child welfare, the sources contain a statistic that society really has to reckon with. It states that cruelty accounts for the vast majority of child abuse cases currently reported in Sri Lanka.
That is a grim metric. It indicates that abuse isn't just a matter of neglect or systemic failure, but active, physical, or psychological cruelty inflicted upon the most vulnerable demographic.
It's an uncomfortable truth, and it speaks to a behavioral crisis. And even for children who are safe, the institutional pressure they face is immense. The education system is currently a pressure cooker. The Grade 5 scholarship examination is officially set for August 9th.
For anyone unfamiliar with the system, the Grade 5 scholarship exam is a defining bottleneck in a Sri Lankan student's life.
It really is.
It is an incredibly high-pressure test taken at around age 10, and the results largely determine whether a student can transfer into better-resourced, highly competitive national schools. The stress on both the children and the parents is monumental.
And this year, that stress is compounded by administrative chaos. The second school term is being abruptly ended on July 24th. Plus, the sources highlight reports of sheer administrative chaos over the issuance of character certificates at Kanagara College.
Imagine the frustration. You are navigating term closures and high-stakes exams, and you are stalled by bureaucratic inefficiency just trying to get a piece of paper verifying your character.
A pressure on the youth is immense. But human beings need an outlet for all this pressure, right? A way to express identity and community outside of exams and economics.
We all need that.
And we see that cultural pulse beating strongly in the next set of updates. The seventh day of the historic Kataragama Perahera was successfully held.
The Kataragama Perahera is a massive multi-religious cultural pageant. It draws thousands of devotees and features traditional dancers, drummers, and elephants. It is a deeply spiritual event that binds the community together, providing continuity and tradition amidst all the modern chaos we've been discussing.
And on the international cultural stage, we have an incredible triumph. The St. Bridget's Convent Choir traveled to the Singapore International Choir Festival and absolutely dominated, winning both gold and silver awards.
It is a phenomenal achievement. Singapore is a global hub, and the competition there is fierce. For these young voices to take that stage and return with top honors showcases the immense artistic talent that exists within the country, provided it gets the platform and the training.
Picture that moment. The discipline required, the harmony, taking the global stage and winning. It's beautiful. And the intellectual sphere is just as active. The trilingual Colombo Literary Festival has just opened, bringing literature, cinema, and music together under one roof, celebrating expression in Sinhala, Tamil, and English.
Furthermore, in the academic and legal realm, Professor Gio Paris is establishing a trust fund specifically designed to support legal research at the University of Colombo and the Sri Lanka Law College.
Investing in the legal minds of tomorrow, which, given the 1.1 million case backlog we discussed, is desperately needed. We also have major physical connectivity expanding. Sri Lanka Railways is inaugurating a brand new train service tomorrow, running between Colombo Fort and Thalamanar Port.
Reestablishing robust transport links to Thalamanar is historically and economically significant.
How so?
Well, Thalamanar is at the northwestern tip of the island, pointing directly toward India. Upgrading that rail line physically changes the economic connectivity of the northern province, integrating it more tightly with the commercial capital of Colombo.
Just to round out the social fabric segment with a quick dose of reality for the elite, singer Salanka Vidusha, who is widely known as Chili, was fined by the courts. The sources don't dive into the exact legal infractions, but it's a quick reminder that no matter your celebrity status, municipal laws still apply.
It grounds celebrity culture back into the mundane reality of the justice system.
It certainly does. Okay, as we move into our final segment, we are going to look at human extremes. The bizarre, the tragic, and the triumphant. Things happening in the sky, under the water, and culminating in the absolute peak of human physical achievement, global sports. Let's start with a story that genuinely sounds like a deleted scene from a comedy movie, but it was terrifying for those involved. A mid-air brawl on an easy jet flight.
This incident involved roughly 10 passengers who engaged in a violent fistfight on a flight traveling from Liverpool to the Spanish island of Tenerife. The brawl escalated to the point where the pilot was forced to abort the journey and turn the aircraft back.
I want you to imagine the physics of this. You are in a pressurized aluminum tube, flying at 30,000 feet, breathing recycled air, and suddenly 10 people around you start throwing punches over what was likely a trivial argument.
It's madness.
It's peak human absurdity. You're heading to Tenerife for a budget beach holiday, and your lack of impulse control grounds a multi-million-dollar aircraft.
It is a stark display of the fragility of social contracts in confined spaces.
But while humans are acting foolishly in the skies today, the ocean is yielding secrets from the skies of the past. This is incredible. A research team has captured the very first images of the wreckage of a Pan Am plane, found exactly 74 years after it tragically crashed.
Discovering wreckage after 74 years requires immense technological sophistication. We are talking about utilizing autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, equipped with high-resolution sonar and deep-sea cameras, scanning the ocean floor at depths that crush normal equipment.
And the fact that the plane hasn't completely dissolved, it proves how resilient aerospace aluminum alloys are, even after 7 decades in corrosive saltwater. It's a literal time capsule sitting at the bottom of the ocean.
It is.
Speaking of artifacts holding immense value, we have a pop culture auction making headlines. The original dragon eggs used in the hit series Game of Thrones are currently up for auction, and bidding is reportedly fierce.
It is a fascinating sociological phenomenon. We assign massive financial value to props made of resin and foam simply because of the cultural weight they carry. They are modern mythology artifacts.
But while people are spending fortunes on fancy dragon eggs, the very real biological threats facing humanity are grim. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Ebola outbreak has reached 2,536 confirmed cases.
And tragically, the death toll has surpassed 1,000.
Over 1,000 dead. Ebola is a hemorrhagic fever virus. It is incredibly vicious and highly contagious through bodily fluids. It's a sobering reminder that despite all our AI and robotic surgeries, biological viruses can still devastate communities.
And human conflict continues to be just as lethal as biology. In southern Thailand, a region that has seen decades of complex separatist insurgency, 5 soldiers were killed in a coordinated attack at a security checkpoint.
We bounce from pop culture auctions to lethal ambushes.
Yeah.
The spectrum of human experience is incredibly wide.
Very wide.
Over in China, we are seeing an interesting intersection of technology and activism. Chinese animal lovers are actively bypassing state internet censors to take their fight against animal abuse offline and overseas.
It demonstrates that when a community is passionate enough about a cause, in this case, animal welfare, they will find the technological loopholes like VPNs or encrypted networks to organize and advocate, even under strict digital surveillance.
Then you have a story from Bangkok, a city notorious for having some of the worst traffic congestion on the planet. A local TikTok user has become a hero by using the platform to expose and solve parking nightmares. They're using social media for actual, tangible civic good, shaming bad parkers into clearing the roads.
It's localized, crowdsourced traffic enforcement using digital platforms.
But let's transition from traffic jams to the ultimate stage of human endeavor, the sporting world. We have to talk about the 2026 FIFA World Cup final.
It was an epic, historic showdown. You had the defending champions, Argentina, led by the legendary Lionel Messi, facing off against a resilient tactical Spanish side.
And they battled to an absolute standstill. For 90 minutes, 2 of the best teams on the planet battered each other.
A physical and mental war.
It went into extra time, testing the absolute limits of their cardiovascular endurance and mental fortitude. And finally, Spain broke the deadlock, winning 1-0 to claim their second World Cup title.
Winning a World Cup final, 1-0 in extra time, is a testament to extreme, disciplined athleticism. One mistake, one momentary lapse in defensive shape, and you lose. Spain maintained perfect tactical discipline under the highest pressure imaginable.
It really feels like a changing of the guard. Messi dragged his team to the final, but he couldn't lift the trophy again. Meanwhile, the sources note that France's Kylian Mbappe made history by securing his second Golden Boot, awarded to the tournament's top scorer.
Mbappe cementing a second Golden Boot confirms his status as the premier offensive force of his generation, even if France didn't take the ultimate prize.
Shifting from the global pitch to the local cricket grounds, the Lanka Premier League, the RPL, is delivering its own domestic drama. We saw the Galway Gallants get undone by the Dambulla Sixers, and then the Jaffna Kings pulled off an absolute heartstopper, winning a 5-run thriller.
T20 cricket is designed for exactly that kind of nail-biting finish, where a single boundary or a dropped catch dictates the outcome. But we also saw an incredible individual performance in the longer format. Ex-Peter Dowdage slammed a massive triple century.
Scoring a triple ton. That means standing at the crease, facing hundreds of deliveries, and scoring 300 runs in a single innings. The physical stamina and the mental concentration required to not make a single fatal mistake for that long is superhuman.
On the international cricket front, England managed to hold off a fierce challenge from India to seal their series victory. And looking ahead, the ICC officially confirmed that the World Test Championship 2027 final will be played at the historic Oval Ground in London.
Sadly, for local fans tracking the youth development, the Sri Lanka U19 looks set to perish early in their current campaign, struggling to find form against international peers. But cricket isn't the only arena where Sri Lankan athletes are making waves. Let's talk about the track. Upun Abekun, widely recognized as the fastest man in South Asia, has officially announced his retirement.
Abekun's career is a monumental achievement. The 100-meter sprint is arguably the most competitive, genetically and infrastructurally demanding event in all of sports. It is historically dominated by athletes from the U.S., Jamaica, and Europe.
For a South Asian athlete to break into that global elite sprinting sphere, to break the 10-second barrier, and to carry the flag on the world stage, what does that mean for the next generation?
It destroys the psychological barrier. He proved that with the right discipline, the geographic and infrastructural disadvantages could be overcome. He leaves behind a legacy that says, we belong on this track.
And that inspiration is clearly visible in other high-octane sports. Take Yvonne David. He has just inspired the nation by reaching the podium on the global Formula 3 racing stage.
F3 is the proving ground for future Formula One drivers. The physical demands withstanding extreme G-forces while making split-second tactical decisions at over 150 miles per hour are immense. To reach the podium is a massive statement of intent.
And he specifically noted how proud he was to fly the national flag at that elite motorsport level. Rounding out the sports news, we have a victory on the courts. In tennis, Sri Lanka, alongside Kuwait and Kyrgyzstan, began their Davis Cup Asia-Oceania Group 3 campaigns on a winning note.
When you look at these sporting achievements, from Spain's World Cup to Abikun's legacy and Yevon's podium, it provides a perfect counterbalance to the chaotic political and criminal news we discussed earlier.
It really does. Sports offer this structured, rules-based arena. Merit, discipline, and endurance are actually rewarded with clear, undeniable outcomes. Which brings me to a thought I just can't shake as we review all this.
What is it?
Well, Yevon David handles lethal G-forces in an F3 car at blistering speeds without losing focus. The Spanish national team handles the literal weight of their country's expectations, maintaining perfect emotional and tactical discipline into extra time to win a World Cup.
Right.
And yet some people can't handle a 3-hour budget flight to Tenerife without starting a 10-person fist fight.
Yeah.
What does that say about us as a species?
It says that the human condition is infinitely variable. We are capable of extraordinary pinpoint discipline and catastrophic primal loss of control, often on the exact same day, in the exact same society.
Exactly. So let's synthesize all of this. If there's one overarching theme to today's deep dive, it is that we are living in a world of extreme, dizzying contrasts. We are a society securing massive, economy-saving terrorist victories from the U.S. in diplomatic halls, while simultaneously battling illegal racketeers and forest fires in our own physical backyards.
We are eagerly adopting advanced artificial intelligence in our stock markets and performing delicate robotic surgeries in our hospitals while simultaneously trying to untangle stubbornly analog, violent gang clashes in our most modern port cities.
We are projecting $36 billion export futures while taking $200 million emergency loans. And we are bidding farewell to local sporting legends who conquered the globe while witnessing new global champions crowned in extra time.
To you, listening to this right now, I want to remind you that whether it's the Bank of Japan raising interest rates to a 31-year high or the prices of 11 food items dropping at your local Lanka Satosa, these are not just abstract headlines.
They are the gears of the machine you live inside. Precisely. These seemingly disparate threads weave the actual tangible fabric of your daily life. The geopolitical maneuverings in the Red Sea directly impact the cost of the diesel moving your groceries. The diplomatic negotiations in Washington protect the jobs of the people peeling cinnamon. The 1.1 million court cases dictate whether your business contract is actually enforceable. It's all connected in this massive web.
Which is why understanding the how and the why is so much more important than just memorizing the what.
Which leaves me with one final provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. If we possess the technology to pinpoint and photograph a lost Pan Am plane 74 years later at the bottom of the crushing ocean, and if we can use advanced XBRL algorithms to map out global finance in milliseconds, why does our ability to simply coexist, whether that's rival factions in the port city, nations vying for power in the Middle East, or just 10 passengers trying to share a budget airline flight, remain our most elusive, unsolvable puzzle?
That is the ultimate question of human progress. We have mastered the physics and the mechanics of the world around us, but we have yet to master the psychology of ourselves.
Boom. That's the muddy water right there. Thank you for taking the plunge on this deep dive with us. Keep questioning the headlines, always look for the why behind the what, and remember that sometimes the most important things in the world aren't as clear as a broken bone on an X-ray. Until next time, stay curious.